I was speaking with Pat Barrett in the sacristy before Mass, and there are numerous members of our Saturday men's group that meet for breakfast, and I attend as much as possible. But I was absent yesterday, and they were evidently taking bets on which direction the deacon would go in his homily today. So, I think I have a surprise for you. And I think maybe if there's no winner, I think the cash should flow my way, all right? Okay. Good to see you this morning. On September 12th, 2018, John George Bitar Sr., 107, died of old age in Trumbull, Connecticut, surrounded by his wife of 85 years, other loving family, and devoted caregivers. His wife, Anne, died 7 months later at the age of 103. Contrary to their family's wishes, the Orthodox Christian couple eloped on November 25th, 1932, in Harrison, New York, much to the surprise of some relatives who exclaimed, "This marriage will never last." The Bitars celebrated their 85th wedding anniversary on November of 2017, and prior to John's death, they were thought to be the world's longest living married couple. They were interviewed on the occasion of their 81st anniversary and were asked about the secret of their exceptionally long marriage. With gray hair and rosacea-marked faces framing their twinkling eyes, they held hands and smiled. John simply said, "Just be content." And Anne said, "You have to learn to accept one another's ways." And with a wink added, "And I always let him have my way." What a charming yet wonderful, beautiful story of a couple, a married couple, a marriage that endured 85 years. I told Marcia this morning, we've only got, no, I won't tell you the number. I don't think we're going to get there. In today's gospel, Jesus reminds us in the dialogue with the Pharisees about this divorce and remarriage and all this thing, he reminds us the heart of marriage, what it really is all about. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. And for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. God himself is the author of this institution we call marriage. He is the author, and he designed it. And the scriptures themselves bear witness to the centrality and the theme, if you will, of the love of God for his people. It's a marriage. It's a nuptial image that we have of God's love for his people. It's everlasting. It's a covenant that's permanent. In fact, the family is an icon of the Blessed Trinity, a communion of persons. Theology gives us that understanding of marriage, but what about reality? What is it that this institution of marriage often goes unrealized, unfulfilled? We could look around at the landscape of our culture today, and we could ask the question honestly, what happened? Where are the children? Where are the families? Where are our marriages? It's a fair question. There are many factors that feed into this situation, of course. Everything's, you can't come up with a simplistic answer for that question, but something has gone wrong. Back in 1960, sociologists frequently identify 1960 as the year that the sexual revolution began in our culture, in the West. And Dr. Ralph Martin, in his latest book, A Church in Crisis, has a very compact summary of what this is all unfolding into. He says this: it continues, the sexual revolution, what began in the 60s, is relentlessly pushing on to its extreme conclusion. What began as a celebration of heterosexual fornication contained in it the seeds of the total overthrow of any relationship sexuality ever had to the natural order, and to a repudiation of any claim that divine law had on it, and now pushes on to a mad denial of biological realities. All ages have seen immorality, sexual misconduct, promiscuity, adultery, divorce. The abortion is nothing new in our era, but something was unique about the 1960s, and what happened back then was the advent of the birth control pill. Now, contraception was also something that was with our cultures throughout the ages too. Different forms, different superstitious things, all kinds of weird concoctions to prohibit the conception of children. But the birth control pill supercharged and accelerated the sexual revolution, throwing dry wood onto the fire. And the goods of marriage were in jeopardy. Now, the goods of marriage, the fundamental two goods of marriage, are the unitive and the procreative good. The unitive good is that good which draws a couple together in a communion of persons. The love, the care, the affection, the intimacy. Those are the goods that complete and fulfill a person. And the procreative good, of course, is the good of children, which issue from that love, that unitive love. So we have the unitive and the procreative goods. What did the pill do? It separated those two. The birth control pill was a very controversial development with respect to the Catholic Church. And in the 1960s, it was on the front burner. St. Paul VI had to deal with this in the wake of the Vatican Council. And he issued in 1968 an encyclical entitled Humanae Vitae. And in Humanae Vitae, he deals with this problem head on. It was a difficult teaching, and it was rejected by many priests, by many theologians and professors, and the commission that was set out to make a finding about whether this birth control pill would be acceptable for Catholics. That commission leaned towards favoring the adoption and the acceptance of the birth control pill. But God moved upon Paul VI, and he prayed, and he said, no, we can't do this. We just cannot do this. Once you separate the marital act into sex and optional children, you destroy the unity of those two goods. Once it became an end in itself, we were up for all kinds of trouble. The marital act in its natural state is at once unitive and procreative. But what has happened because of separating those goods has been devastating to our culture. Spiritually, there's a spiritual component to this as well. The devil is real, and his first attack on the human race, in which he entered, and original sin we fell to, was an attack on the marriage, the union of Adam and Eve. His strategy has not changed one bit over the millennia. Hit the marriage, kill the marriage. Because if you destroy marriage, you destroy the family. And when you destroy the family, the whole social order breaks down. In the encyclical, Paul VI makes the most profound statement where he really gets to it. And here's what he said. The church, nevertheless, in urging men to observe the precepts of the natural law, teaches that each and every marital act must of necessity retain its intrinsic relationship to the procreation of human life. And he warned that there would be some results, some consequences, if that were not the case. And he said there would be an increase of marital infidelity, the illusion of inconsequential sexual relations, which gave the green light, if you will, to affairs, adultery, and which lead to divorce and so on. He said that the moral standards would generally across the board be lowered. How low can we go? And he said that women would be a mere instrument for the satisfaction of men's desires, the objectification of women. He was right. He was prophetic, and he was right on target. People, even today, look at you like you've come from Mars or Venus when you talk about Humanae Vitae. I remember teaching a marriage class at Lumen Christi for 5 years, and every year the seniors came in, and when we would get to Humanae Vitae, which we did line by line, by the way, line by line exposition of this teaching, they all said, what's wrong with inconsequential sex, or just casual sex outside of marriage? What's wrong with hookups? What's wrong with all this stuff? What's wrong with cohabitation? Or same-sex unions? There's no problem here. Well, I think we've been brainwashed. Our culture is the momentum, the tide of our culture has brainwashed us into a tolerance and acceptance of these things. Well, okay, maybe it isn't good, but that's just the way it is. Well, that's not the way it is. It's a difficult teaching, but so was, unless truly, I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. And they left him. They left. Difficult teachings, yes. Truth, yes. What we've done, and largely, I will say this, my wife and I left the Catholic Church when we were young, and we were gone for a long time. I, too, am a victim of this. So I know what I'm talking about. We've traded treasure. We've traded treasure of children and family for the fool's gold of material wealth, ease, convenience, comfort. Kids are messy. Kids are noisy. And I love to hear them. I'd rather listen to that as a homily any day. Not only that, though, we've murdered over 65 million of them. And the reason is not because of rape. That's maybe 1%. The reason that our 65 million abortions have piled up since Roe v. Wade was enacted, the reason is social and economic. When you do this survey, the statistics on it, I can't afford it. We couldn't afford it. We wouldn't want it. It goes on and on. G.K. Chesterton so wisely stated this: the disintegration of rational society started in the drift from the hearth and the family. The solution must be a drift back. The drift back will not be quick, nor with opposition. Today, it will be a slow transition, one marriage, one family at a time, modeling what true beauty is. It's going to take a long time. We've been drifting out of control for at least 60 years. I won't see it, and you won't either. The goodness of marital fidelity, the goodness of life. And by the way, there's a life chain today, Michigan and West Avenue, where we'll form a cross in honor of life and family and faith. I went to a conference a few years back, and it was a wonderful event. The speakers were incredible. The teachings were the best that you could get. And during one of the masses, there were 17-some thousand people there, mostly young people. There was a man that was ahead of me going up to communion. He was cradling in his right arm his infant son, and he was pushing his special needs daughter in a chair, wheelchair. He got to the communion, and he knelt. Receive. And in that moment, I was struck, and God said, that was the greatest presentation of the whole week. It spoke volumes, the glory and the beauty of family and children and fidelity. We need to recapture our families, our young people. Big job. Big job. Prayers, promotion. Let's give ourselves to the task. God bless you.